So I've got some company today, helping me ground and helping me stay focused in my energies and my physical awareness. It's nice to have a little being that is still very much connected to the primal elements of breath work and relaxation and effective, patterns of releasing tension and trauma from the body. Those reflexes are still very strongly intact through the animal instinct. And it's great to have animal teachers and friends along the way, just to kind of give us that gentle nudge and reminder to be tapping into those spaces of play and exploration and curiosity as well, which is definitely something to do with development and age and stages. So this little one here is very much in the curious phase, but I think curious by nature as well. So interesting to watch that evolving and transforming. But I wanted to talk about boundaries, and I wanted to talk about no, and I wanted to talk about the voice and its relationship to finding confidence to be in a listening space to the parts of yourself or the narratives or voices within you that say no. And I think it's an interesting point to just tap into this subject, and I'm completely drawing on my own experience and my own current framework of understanding in relation to this portion of my personal journey, vocal journey, just general point of development, and the quality of space that has emerged for me during this time of, say, recalibration and reframing and rest, and how that's come about and how that's manifest in such a way that essentially pretty much everything had to come grinding to a halt for a little bit. So I'm now at a point of rebuilding and restructuring, and that's been very much about going into the foundational aspects of my understanding of self and needs, and there's been quite a strong thread of that has connected to the physical, to the body, to physical health. And I think it's not possible to look at the body and the energy without considering your mental and emotional spectrum of well-being, and of course your spirit within that and how it feels. So very much trying to look at this 5 elements of voice work framework that is evolving for me as a practice, and trying to use that as a map in a way to navigate, okay, at what point of the spectrum of these 5 different points. I'm thinking maybe like a 5-pointed star might be quite a good visualization of that, you know, just that each area that concerns and relates to thinking about the voice and the person in a holistic way has its own compass mark. And the more one looks at the shape of that and the system of that, and seeing the distinction of those different qualities in a more physical, tangible way. I'm quite a visual person, so it sort of helps me to like map things out and lay them in that kind of fashion. But it really gives you that opportunity to almost be working with that wheel or that star, to think, okay, which of these are in balance or in congruence with my genuine desires and feelings, goals, intentions. I guess those are all kind of interchangeable words that can mean different things, and they can mean similar things depending on the context. So which of these points feel at this point in time highly developed or comfortable, and which of these points feel underdeveloped or underconfident or not so comfortable? So it's in some way trying to make an assessment, which area am I most in need of giving my focus and attention and energy to, in order to bring that up to an overall balance with everything else. And how can I give more focus and energy to one particular aspect without letting these other elements or these other parts fall by the wayside, or, you know, gets to a point where, say, 3 or 4 out of 5 elements seem that they are kind of flowing well, they're in resonance with each other, or they feel comfortable, and 1 or 2 don't, and then you invest a lot of time and energy in that space. But, you know, to the point that you bring that up to, you know, a certain level where you're like, okay, I feel more confident with that, but then everything else has fallen by the wayside. And without that continuation of a check-in or practice or routine with that, you somehow lose touch with those parts, or you lose confidence with those things, and then you're trying to sort of stitch together these building blocks that somehow that one has now morphed into something bigger, and these things have shrunk, and now these parts don't quite lock into place. So there's that, and then there's also the piece of, you know, continuing to think all the time about the bigger picture, the bigger framework, the bigger ecosystem of all these elements working together, and that there will be a bar, or there will be a limitation at some point with how well you can continue to evolve and grow in one particular area if all these other pieces are not engaged with, or not having work and energy put into them. I think maybe energy is a good way to think about it, that each of these realms or dimensions of working with the voice, ultimately working with yourself and your energies, require, say, some charging, some topping up, some active engagement. And the active process can be more of a doing and a playing, or it can be more of a reflecting and processing and listening. So there are kind of 2 ends of the spectrum, and every manifestation of variations between those points. but then we're trying to give a quality of energy and time to multiple facets of this object of our focus and attention, which ultimately is, overall, I want to be developing, understanding, and supporting my vocal explorations. And I think it's safe to say, in my practice of applying this lens and thinking about the voice in this kind of multifaceted way, I've experienced both sides of the coin, of a point in time where my schedule, my routine, my lifestyle has accommodated a quality of space that's really allowed me to be very, very balanced in approaching these different areas. And in that way, I've been able to really see and understand clearly the relationship between these different components, and what works for me within that. Like, if these two are parallel to each other, how much of each do I need to temper in order for them to have a harmonious connection, and vice versa for all these other points. If we're thinking again about the star shape, we've got these conjunctions, oppositions, these angles, and how can we make them work with each other in a balanced way. And then the context of the bigger overall shape, how can they all be at a level where they're fine-tuned within their own right, within each of these areas, and within our capacity, appreciating the limitations of knowledge we have and where we need to spend more time or energy or research or find the support we need to help us come to a space of deeper understanding. And I'm saying deeper understanding rather than like a productivity, outcome, output focused lens, because being engaged with something doesn't automatically mean that we need to be creating artifacts or products as examples of the fact that we are actually doing the work and that we're engaging and that we're learning, developing. Growth as a concept, when we're talking about the internal realm, doesn't have to equate to lots of shedding, of new layers kind of coming into our perspective and therefore taking on more. Growth can be a place of quiet and of stillness as well. So I just wanted to sort of tap into the 5 elements framework a little bit to just highlight where that has, the potential to be a very nourishing framework when it's used effectively and intelligently, in terms of, okay, these are the different pieces that I'm playing with, and how can I manage my time? How can I manage my energy to dedicate what is required to get these components working together in a way that we're ultimately striving for a balance between them, that feels sustainable for us to manage. And yeah, I've definitely experienced a cohesive pattern with using that framework, and I've also experienced a kind of a disrupted pattern where I've placed too much emphasis on one thing, or I've let other things slide because I've been really taken with one particular subject area, or become distracted by all that is on offer within that space, and then get to a point where I feel like, okay, I need something else now. There's some other spice or some other ingredient I need to add to this mix, and then you kind of become blinkered in one particular through one particular lens, say, when actually all that was required was just to take a step back, to incorporate those other pieces and realize, okay, actually a bit of this and a bit of that and a little bit of this starts to create a much richer context, much richer space for us to be working in generally, and get a kind of an overall deeper level of insight into ourselves and our needs, because we are complex beings, we are multifaceted. The older you get, the more experiences that you accrue, and the more interactions you have, and we ripen, and we become richer generally, as people. So it's important to kind of bring that into consideration when we're trying to give ourselves permission to work holistically, because ultimately it's like, yeah, it's about giving yourself scope to be omnidirectional, 360 in a kind of, yeah, overall way of looking at things and navigating, but also taking that opportunity to try and ground all that into some sort of central focus, which is, whatever your unique voice is, whatever your unique flavor, interest, or message, if you like, is. So with all that being said, how do we relate this to our space of inquiry about what our true desires are, if we think about yes and no questions and answers, when we're being presented with lots of stimulus and lots of information, and opportunity, then how can we create a quality of internal listening so that we are really accurately able to discern, yes, my answer is yes, or no, my answer is no. And so with the focus for me at the moment, I'm saying no more than I'm saying yes. And this is about coming back to that quality of building, as I said, from the ground up. So taking stock, taking inventory. What do I want to keep? What structural things are there that help me to develop and progress? Is on the one hand a kind of like a positive outlook of like, okay, yeah, yes, I like this and I want this and like I need this and like I really love that. But then to kind of balance that out, there's this energy of, no, I don't like that, and I don't want that, and that's not good for me, and I don't really need that, or I just don't have the energy for that, or it's not giving me what I need. So there's that sort of like balance then between those two elements, and that's simplified, kind of feels like it's on a much more black and white kind of scale. But I think where things become muddy and ambiguous is when we are kind of overexerting our capacity of yes, I'll take this on, yes, I'll do that, yes, I will give energy to this, yes, you can have this, yes, I will do this for you. And at some point, the balance between that assessment that we have is somehow shifted, and our yes, which is a kind of, we want to be helpful, we want to be available, and that's a kind of a positive thing, that can sort of move into then territories of, it no longer becomes positive for us because we're over giving, overdoing, oversharing energy that we actually need to give to ourselves. So I think there's something interesting in there about, no doesn't have to be negative, and there's this real association culturally with, oh, I'm a yes person, I'm a no person, and sort of painting these things in a sort of like good and bad light, and that's I don't feel that that's like a helpful way of framing it when it comes to, assessing what is actually right for you, and how can we clearly and firmly state our boundaries and our needs. The more we get comfortable with that, the more we get used to doing that, ultimately the more positive that will be for us, in terms of knowing that we are congruent with authentically how we feel, but also for other people, because they will understand more clearly, okay, this is what this person can offer me, or this is what this person can manage, and this is what this person cannot do or offer me. And that doesn't have to be uh, inherently challenging or difficult, but it can be certainly challenging and difficult when we've not honoured ourselves at points, when we have continually said yes when we really meant no, or weren't very sure and said maybe or not right now, which was a sort of a cushioned way of saying no, I can't do that, or no, I don't want to, or I'm not available, in order to sort of people please, or to try and make ourselves be more appealing. We don't want to rock the boat, we don't want to upset anyone, and all of that stuff is really testament to the kind of social norms that we adhere to, and it's like, okay, what can we do to break down these barriers, and how can we be more open and understanding of others? Well, it starts with, how can I be more open and understanding with myself? Like, what's the quality of time and space that I give myself to get to know myself, in terms of, okay, what are my needs at this point in time along this timeline, bigger picture, but what are my needs and wants this week? What are my needs and wants today? What are my needs and wants right now? And in that sort of question, which is taking you into quite like an internal space, how can we support ourselves to achieve those things? Like, what do I need, and do I have the tools and resources to help myself achieve that? If not, what do I have in my environment? Is there anyone that can help me? Is there any space that I can go to for support? If not, then what do I need to do to change that, and where might I be able to find that or begin that process? So yeah, my personal sort of journey at the moment with no is really has been very much connected to energy levels, and having to make a very stark assessment of, okay, what's somebody asking me, what will that actually entail. If I'm not clear, then trying to find out a bit more information that will help me make that decision, and trying to move past that barrier of being afraid to ask, like, oh, I don't want to appear that I'm on the fence, or I don't want to come off as rude, or I don't want to like present this kind of like uncertainty. It's like, if something's not clear to you, then ask, and trying to sort of coax myself out of that space of insecurity or embarrassment around, like, oh, could you just like give me a bit of a sense of what's actually involved here, because that gives you more information to help you evaluate and make a good decision in terms of, okay, right, now I understand what's involved, like, okay, what what will that take of me? Is that sustainable? Can I manage that right now? Do I have enough energy to do that? Maybe weighing up, what will I get out of this situation? Not in a kind of like uh, a selfish way, in a selfless way of, if something is asking for time and energy from us, there does come a point, I think, quite more often than not, through hardship or through trauma, where you really have to take stock and think, okay, my time is precious, my energy is precious, and what am I giving and what am I getting, and really making that sort of distinction of, like, well, if it's not nourishing me on some level, then it's taking energy from me that I'm not going to get back. And that's really something that's kind of come into my field of awareness, particularly over the last 7 months, 7, 8 months. And it's been an interesting introspective journey, because it's really forced me to examine this thing of, like, okay, what can I manage today? What are my battery levels? Where are they at? And that's a question that I'm asking myself now before anything else even comes into my field, because there has to be that kind of assessment of, like, okay, what's achievable today, just in terms of the basics, on a kind of like survival practicality of, like, okay, what can I do today? And then if there's a kind of an excess of energy, that, and I'm saying an excess, like, if there's more energy available to me than beyond just, getting up, getting dressed, and feeding myself, and kind of maintaining myself on a basic level, maintaining the space that I'm living in, contributing towards, caring for others maybe that need it, that rely on me, then, what else is left? And then, depending on the way that you kind of make that distinction between different spaces or themes in your life, okay, like professionally, what's being demanded of me, like emotionally, socially, and really, like, it sounds very, very fragmented, but I think when you are really rebuilding, it does really demand of you that you look at each component and be like, okay, if this is part of my structure and part of my framework, where are the weak points, and where is the dodgy screw, or the the brick that's got a crack in it, like, that either needs a severe repair or a replacement, or we just need to get rid of it and like actually restructure this whole thing. So I think, yeah, that has introduced me into this space of I need to get comfortable again with no as a complete sentence, because the times that I say yes when I'm not 100% sure about it, or it's not on a kind of like, oh yes, but I'm a bit nervous. Like a yes is a yes, and I'm not sure is more of a no than it is a yes. So it's kind of like also taking the opportunity to really feel into the physical emotional space of like where is that no sitting in my body, and like, how comfortable is it, and noticing the challenge of like, is the no uncomfortable because my energy is really clearly telling me like, this is, whoa, like I don't like this, I don't want this, or is it like, this is uncomfortable because I'm saying no and I feel like I should be saying yes, and I'm worried about what somebody's going to think of me if I say no. And you're kind of picking up on the sensations that are associated with that quality of uncomfortableness. So it's like all these strands and lines are really subtle and really fine, which is why I very much comment on this as like, this is an ongoing process, it's an ongoing journey. It's something that I'm really prepared to invest time and energy into trying to understand on a deeper level within myself, because I feel like this is something that we collectively, socially, culturally, struggle with. And it kind of ties into all sorts of really, really interesting questions about social dynamics, and it's a really poignant time to kind of be reflecting on that in terms of what's going on within the kind of the framework of women's politics, and just, yeah, the overall flavor of what's going on at the moment. So I just wanted to tap into that space and to share a little bit of that, and just kind of, yeah, stir the pot a little bit. Get some of those concepts like cooking in a more forward facing way, and a more direct way, where I'm like, okay, I'm actively sharing that process as it's unfolding, and I really feel like there's a lot of scope within the context of the voice work to have some dedicated focus on trying to build a sense of security and safety within ourselves, in really articulating and asserting no as a comfortable communication. So something there about, yeah, moving away from playing small or making ourselves small and submissive when we are actually trying to clearly communicate where our lines and boundaries are, and instead, rehearsing almost, or giving yourself opportunities to say no and learn where that line is and what feels good to you, getting to a point where no rolls off the tongue just as easily as, oh yeah, yeah, up for that, nice one. And that the line between them, you know, it doesn't have to be like an absolute chasm or a big leap, but just yeah, finding our no. So I think that's potentially a good name to, or a good title to be working with over the next while. And I imagine that there will be, you know, some materials that evolve to kind of relate to that, and very much trying to bring that focus and thread into the trauma work element going on, which is, you know, part of that emotional well-being piece, as part of the 5 elements of voice work. So yeah, um, interesting stuff, which is really like firing me up at the moment, and I'm learning a lot, and I'm really busy with it, but it's all really ultimately positive. But yeah, definitely some challenges along the way, being sort of thrown situations to sort of test my no, and yeah, that definitely brings things right to the forefront of your, like, oh, okay, I thought I was comfortable with that, but maybe there's some more work to do. So yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing those insights with you as they come through. And yeah, I'm open and interested to really open up that space for further discussion, and for, you know, for sharing and for questions from people, or if there's anything that I've touched on that particularly resonates or kind of um, creates a sort of a thread of inquiry, then it would be really interesting to hear your thoughts, or if you're feeling like you want to share some experiences, anecdotes of challenges that you have personally with no, it would be really welcome in the space to do that. And I might not answer immediately, but I will do my best to keep an eye on this post, and look forward to hearing from you. And yeah, we'll keep posting and sharing and keeping you up to date with offerings and things that are going on. So I'm gonna check out and try to remove this creature from me so that I can carry on with doing housework. But yeah, hope this finds you well, and yeah, no.